Tech family, it is so good to see everyone today. As you can see, I'm in a completely different place. I'm actually in an Airbnb in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm out here shopping for properties. I know that sounds absolutely bizarre since I just moved into a place in New York City. However, I'm renting that place and I've always wanted to buy. And since I can be anywhere in the United States right now for my job, I thought, what better time than the present to come out here and check out some properties. I love the weather here, the beautiful mountains, the culture of health and fitness, so I thought this might be a good spot. Anyway, what's more important for this video right now is my review on the Dell XPS 9310, which I have behind me. Since I've been living and breathing off this laptop for the last 2 weeks, I really feel I've now gained such in-depth knowledge of what it's like to own and use the device, which really maps to how I normally do my reviews, so I thought I'd hop on while I'm in Scottsdale and actually share my thoughts with you. So please bear with me. Clearly, the lighting isn't as good as it would normally be in my studio, nor the audio, but I wanted to get this video out fast and share my thoughts on it with you. So let's talk about performance first, because in my original review of this laptop, which was around the Tiger Lake's performance, so it was really focused on what is the difference between Intel's 11th gen CPU, I posted some scores that a number of people commented and said, hey, they've seen better scores out there, so I tried to delve into this. The first thing that I want to let you know is how I run my benchmarks. So what I do is I actually run Cinebench R20 twice first before taking my measurements, and that's because I want to make sure the laptop is warmed up. When people do high performance tasks, whether it's just coding or video editing or things like that, it's rare that they start from cold boot and start working away. They're doing it for a duration of time, and I want to emulate that in my measurements. Secondly, Dell released a BIOS update version 1.1, which has substantially improved things. The laptop performs better, it doesn't run quite as hot, and the fans come on less. Lastly, I worked with someone else who has the same laptop with the same specs as me. With all that said and done, when him and I ran the same Cinebench R20 test with the same Dell thermal and Windows power management settings, I hit around 1,800 points and he got around 1,900. So yes, my unit is slower. However, it's not massively so. That being said, when we think about performance of this laptop with Intel's new Tiger Lake 11th gen processor, it is more of an evolution. It's not a revolution. But I will say this, in terms of thermal management, I did find things were a bit better than the 10th gen, the 9300 model that I had before. It is no longer such a furnace. It certainly still feels warm to the touch, especially when you use it on your lap, but when you're using it on a table, for instance, it's really not that bad. It's probably not noticeable. So in terms of performance of this laptop, let's wrap here and say the following. Again, not revolutionary, but it is going to be plenty powerful for most tasks. Every day browsing the web, watching videos, some computer coding, for sure it's going to be plenty powerful for that, unless you have very specific needs around, machine learning or something over there. And for video editing, hopefully once the programs update to make better use of Tiger Lake's graphics, hopefully it will be good enough then for some light video editing. So performance gets a bit of a tick here. Now, I do have lots of Tiger Lake laptops coming in different chassis that will hopefully have better thermal management than this one, so stay tuned as I will update you on those ones. But let's give this one a tick on performance. I do want to say the following. With both this laptop with the older BIOS and the older version of this laptop with Intel's 10th gen processor, I did notice some slowdowns, like when I was doing casual tasks, which was really annoying. But since updating the BIOS on this laptop, it has been super smooth. All right, let's talk about the display. The display in this laptop is absolutely excellent. I don't have my measuring tools on me right now, my Spider X, but what I would say is it is super bright, like insanely bright. Honestly, this is, you guys know me, right? I like a very bright display. This one is so bright that even me has rarely run it at full brightness. And this is the kind of display that is that bright that on battery power, you can make it go right down to some very low settings, but more on battery life later. I really do want to talk about battery life. But on the display, I did notice some slight backlight bleeding. Honestly, it wasn't too bad, and I'm not going to show you a photo of it because it won't even pick up in the photo, but it is a little bit there. It's not, again, not too bad. Now, I had no dead pixels or any of that in my display. It didn't use PWM flickering. It is a very good display. What I would say as well is because it is so high resolution, my one is the 4K Lite model, I can dial the Windows settings down to 225% scaling, so I see a lot of information on it. And on that note, because of its 16:10 aspect ratio and 13.4-inch screen, which is a little bit bigger than a normal screen, which is 13.3, and most of these 13.3s have that 16:9 aspect ratio. This really does push this laptop of, hey, you could use it as your main primary device. I personally feel like those 13.3-inch screens, like what I had in the HP Envy at 16:9 aspect ratio, good secondary device, but I personally wouldn't recommend it as a primary device because you just don't see as much information, and that kind of slows you down in a performance and a workflow that you might be doing. So this laptop again gets a tick there. Great display. It definitely can be used as a primary device. Yes, I would prefer a bigger screen, like a 14-inch or 15-inch, but this is good enough. All right, next positive thing about this laptop is how it feels. It feels so premium. Seriously, guys, it is one of the best feeling laptops I've ever used. And it feels like they've solved a bit of problems from the prior model. The prior model didn't feel quite as premium. It felt like it just wasn't ready. Like, let me just explain what I mean. On the keyboard on some of my other 10th gen models, when I say 10th gen, I mean Intel 10th gen, which is the 9300 version of this. I own 3 of them. And all of them had some slight manufacturing issues. Like, for instance, one of them, the keyboard felt a bit rough on the keyboard deck. This one just feels perfect. It feels perfectly smooth on the keys. And on that note, the keyboard just feels better. It feels like it's got more travel, or it's a bit more clicky. The other one just felt a little too shallow when I was typing on it, but the typing experience on this one is absolutely excellent. The only negative when I think about how it feels is around the trackpad, actually. So when I press the buttons in the far left or far right corner, sometimes it isn't that accurate. Overall, the touchpad accuracy is very, very good, but sometimes it skips a bit when I press the far left because it depresses a bit in the back left corner and the back right corner. Now, the other thing I was going to say is, as you can see here, this time I've gone with the silver model. For all 3 of my Dell XPS 9300s, I went with the white model. Those models just picked up so many scuffs and scratches so much more easily in their finish than this model. So I would actually advise you get this silver one, like what I have here. This one, it just feels a lot more premium than the Frost White models. Another positive I wanted to mention is the speakers. They're upward firing, thank gosh. So it doesn't get quieter when you use it on your lap, like propped up in bed or something like that. It makes for an excellent movie watching experience. Now, unlike the other laptops like the Surface Laptop 3 or even my older 10th gen Dell XPS, the speakers are placed below the keys, but they don't rattle when it's at a loud volume, which is really, really good and kind of gets to that point I mentioned earlier that this laptop, it just feels more polished than the prior version of the laptop. And now the worst thing that I found about this laptop is actually battery life. I get about 3 to 6 hours of battery life on this laptop, and that depends entirely on what I'm doing, like the usage, and also how bright I have the screen. At the best case scenario, I see the processor drawing around 3 to 4 watts of power. Now, on top of the processor drawing that, the whole laptop itself draws an additional 4 watts of power. So if you just do simple math and say it has a 52 watt hour battery, which it does, and you divide it by 8 watts or 7 watts, you get to that 6 to 7 hour mark. Now that's at the best possible case. So if you've got the screen brighter than the lower settings, or you're doing some more intensive tasks, you're going to get a lot less, taking you towards the 3 to 4 hour mark. So this is not a very good laptop for battery life, which is funny because I found the Dell XPS 9300, the prior model with the 10th gen processor, actually performed very well with battery. Now, if you get the lower resolution screen, you're probably going to eke out an extra hour or 2 of battery life, which is a good idea, taking a look at that if you need battery life. However, this laptop is not a very long running laptop on battery. The one thing though I would say is, unlike other laptops where you don't really want to be running the screen's display at the lowest brightness setting, this laptop is so bright that that's okay. So don't feel like you won't be able to squeeze extra power out of it by putting the brightness right down. Nonetheless, as I said, not the best performer when it comes to battery life. All right, let's wrap up, folks. I really like this laptop. It is much better than I thought it would be, especially after Dell issued that new BIOS. It now runs much cooler to the touch. It's still a warm laptop, but it's not the furnace that the older 9300 was. It also just feels so premium. I mean, seriously, just holding the laptop, because of that premium feel, it's a laptop I seek out to use. I mean, you know me, guys, I'm in a very peculiar case here where I have a ton of different laptops that I could be using, but this is a laptop I get excited to use. You know, the keyboard is great, the screen is absolutely unbelievable. The only negative, as I mentioned, is the battery life. It's not great, but of course you can get a lower resolution screen. Compared to the HP Envy 13, which I recently reviewed on the channel, that laptop doesn't get quite as warm to the touch. It's a great laptop as well. Its fans are a bit louder, but the biggest difference is really the screen size. I just wasn't seeing enough information on it. It's a great secondary laptop, you know, to support a desktop that you might have at home, or maybe a bigger laptop. But this laptop, with its slightly bigger 13.4 inch 16:10 aspect ratio screen, I do just see enough information. So this laptop is really the minimum. It just gets over the line of what I would consider a good laptop for a primary device. Anyway, let me wrap by saying this. The question, will I keep this laptop? The answer is yes. And if I'm going to keep this laptop for me, which I'm excited about, I certainly can recommend it for you. Yes, it is a bit pricey, but it's just a great laptop. So you'll probably be seeing it in future in the background of my videos, because I'm going to use it to take notes on the benchmarks, you know, record the scores, that sort of thing. I'll be writing scripts on it around the house. And of course, I'll be using it for travel. Anyway, folks, if you did like this somewhat crazy review in this weird Airbnb, let me know in the comments below. Make sure, of course, to smash that subscribe button, albeit gently, click the thumbs up and the notification bell. Until next time, I will see you later.